It's 2:47 a.m. and you're staring at the ceiling again. Not praying. Not dreaming. Just staring. The blue glow from your phone cuts across the dark like a blade, and on that screen is an invoice you can't pay, a balance that laughs at your empty bank account. Your chest feels tight, not the dramatic kind you see in movies, but the slow, grinding pressure of adult life collapsing quietly. You whisper into the silence, "God, are you even there?" And the silence answers back with nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator. Just the weight of tomorrow already pressing on today. I know that stillness, the kind that settles in around 2 a.m. when the rest of the world is asleep and you feel utterly alone with your racing thoughts. For me, it was the stack of bills on the kitchen counter, the ones I'd been shuffling around for weeks, hoping somehow they'd shrink if I just didn't look at them. But maybe for you it's different. Maybe it's the email from your boss that landed at 4:52 p.m., the one with a subject line so carefully worded that you knew before opening it, this wasn't going to be good. Or maybe it's the conversation you've been avoiding with your spouse, the words you've practiced in the shower and on your commute, never quite landing the way you need them to. Whatever it is, it sits on your chest like a stone, and the silence of the night only amplifies the weight of it. Tease the doctor's appointment circled on the calendar, the one you're pretending not to think about while it quietly eats you alive from the inside. Whatever it is, you know that 2:47 a.m. feeling. That silent scream. That desperate, embarrassing, raw question, "God, do you even see me?" Here's the truth I'm holding on to with white knuckles tonight, and I'm offering it to you not as a preacher who has it all figured out, but as a fellow struggler who's been face down on the carpet more times than I can count. Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6, and I'm going to say this carefully because I don't want it to sound like a bumper sticker or a coffee mug slogan. These verses say something radical. They say, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight." Now, I used to roll my eyes at that. I used to think, great, another Christian platitude. Another spiritual band-aid slapped on a bullet wound. But here's what I'm learning the hard way: this isn't a platitude. This is a lifeline. Because when it's 2:47 a.m. and your own understanding has run out of answers, when your own logic has exhausted every scenario, when your own strength has collapsed like a cheap lawn chair, that's exactly when trust becomes not a nice idea but the only thing left to hold. Let me take you somewhere real. I remember sitting in a parking lot outside a coffee shop 3 years ago. The engine was off. The sun was setting, that ugly orange-gray color that makes everything feel hopeless. I had just read a rejection email, one of those polite, corporate, "We regret to inform you" gut punches that somehow hurts worse than if they just cussed me out. I had prayed about that job. I had fasted about that job. I had done everything right, checked every spiritual box, and still rejected. And I sat there in that cold car, staring at the empty parking lot, and I thought, maybe this whole God guides you thing is a fairy tale. Maybe I'm just talking to the ceiling like an idiot. Maybe guidance is just a word we use when things work out, and when they don't, we call it a mystery. That was the moment my faith got real. Not the pretty, Instagram-filtered faith. The ugly, honest, hanging by a thread faith. And that's the faith I'm talking about today. Not the faith that pretends everything makes sense. The faith that admits nothing makes sense and chooses to trust anyway. Because here's the question that started haunting me in that parking lot, and it's the question I want to leave with you right now. What if guidance isn't a map, but a hand? Think about that for a second. A map gives you the whole route. It shows you the destination, the turns, the traffic, the arrival time. A map is control. But a hand? A hand is presence. A hand is relationship. A hand doesn't show you the whole path, it just holds yours in the dark and says, "I'm not letting go." What if that's what God is actually offering? Not a blueprint you can analyze and approve, but a grip you can feel when everything else is slipping? I'm not standing here as someone who's conquered doubt. I'm standing here as someone who's made friends with it. I've yelled at God in my car. I've told Him He's not making sense. I've accused Him of being silent when I needed Him most. And you know what I'm starting to suspect, slowly, painfully, beautifully? What if his silence was actually his guidance all along? I remember the coffee cup. Not the one from this morning, the one from 3 years ago, sitting on my kitchen counter at 4:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. The coffee had been hot when I poured it at 7 a.m. By 4:15, it was a cold, gray testament to a day gone sideways. I'd been staring at my phone, refreshing an email inbox that refused to give me an answer. The job I'd prayed about. The one I'd fasted over. The one where I'd checked every spiritual box and still heard nothing but the hum of my refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. And I remember picking up that cold mug, feeling the weight of it, and thinking, this is what my prayers feel like right now. They were hot once. They were fresh and full of hope. Now they're just sitting here, going cold, and I don't know if anyone's listening. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you've got your own cold coffee cup this morning, a prayer that started out fervent and has slowly cooled into something you're almost embarrassed to still be holding. A hope you were so sure of that now feels naive. A plan you were confident God had given you that now looks like it's been sitting on His desk, unread, for months. And the silence? The silence is the worst part. Because silence doesn't give you anything to work with. A no you can grieve. A yes you can celebrate. But silence? Silence just sits there, heavy and ambiguous, making you wonder if you heard wrong in the first place. Here's what I'm learning, and I'm learning it so slowly it almost hurts. Psalm 37, verse 23, and I'm going to read this carefully because it changed the way I understand delay, says that the Lord makes our steps firm. But the Hebrew word there, the original language, it doesn't mean God is just making sure we don't trip over rocks. It means He is ordaining, establishing, delighting in the very placement of our feet. Which sounds beautiful until you're standing in a parking lot with a rejection email and cold coffee and you realize, if He's ordaining my steps, then this moment, this ugly, disappointing, makes no sense moment, this is an ordained step too. I used to think guidance meant God showing me the whole staircase. I wanted the blueprint. I wanted the 5-year plan with bullet points and a clear ROI. But here's where I failed, and I failed spectacularly. 2 years before that parking lot, I had a decision to make. A big one. And I rushed it. I didn't pray, I panicked. I didn't wait, I forced. I told myself I was being decisive, a good leader, someone who takes initiative. But the truth? I was terrified of silence. I was terrified of not knowing. So I filled the silence with my own voice and called it wisdom. And that decision? It cost me. It cost me time, money, relationships, and a season of my life I can't get back. I ran ahead of God and then blamed Him for not catching up. See, here's the mirror moment. Right here. Because maybe you're not just waiting on God. Maybe you're wrestling with the pressure of being the one everyone else is waiting on. The team leader who has to make the call. The parent who can't afford a mistake. The person holding a decision that affects not just you but people you love, people who trust you, people who are looking at you right now expecting you to know what to do. And the fear of choosing wrong? It's paralyzing. It wakes you up at night. It makes you second-guess every instinct, replay every conversation, and wonder if you've already missed the turn God wanted you to take. I remember staring at the kitchen window one Thursday morning, dish towel limp in my hand, replaying a conversation from 3 days ago as if I could rewind time and choose different words. My knuckles had gone white around the sponge without me even noticing. That's when the truth surfaced, not in a sermon, not in a verse, but in the ache radiating from my shoulders down to my spine. I had been holding on so fiercely to my own sequence of events that my body was bracing for a collision that hadn't even come. It's like gripping the steering wheel of a parked car, pressing the pedal, and wondering why you're still exhausted even though you haven't moved an inch. The map I kept demanding from God had become a wall between us, my fingers tracing routes He never drew, my eyes scanning exits He never intended. And all the while, His quiet invitation sat unopened, not because He was silent, but because my hands were simply too full to receive it. Oh, there I was, in my living room, 2 in the morning, nobody watching, nobody to perform for. And I did something I'd never done before. I sat on the floor, and I opened my hands. Literally. Palms up. In the dark. And I said out loud, I don't know what you're doing. I don't like what you're doing. But I'm done pretending I know better. And that moment, that small, unimpressive, nobody saw it moment, was the most honest prayer I've ever prayed. Because surrender isn't losing. I thought it was. I thought surrender meant waving a white flag on my dreams, admitting defeat, giving up on the things I'd asked for. But what if surrender is the first real act of trust? What if opening your hands is the only way to receive what He's been trying to give you all along? You can't grab a gift with clenched fists. You can't be led while you're still insisting on driving. Psalm 37, verse 23, it says He delights in every detail of our lives. Every detail. Not just the breakthroughs. Not just the answered prayers. The delays. The detours. The cold coffee in the silent inbox and the 3-year wait that makes no sense. He's not punishing you with the silence. He's preparing you in it. And what if the delay you're living in right now isn't denial, it's design? What if the closed door isn't rejection, it's protection? What if the silence isn't absence, it's an invitation to stop filling the space with your own voice and finally listen? Here's the truth I want you to carry, and I want you to say it out loud when nobody's around and you don't feel spiritual enough to believe it. Delay is not denial. It is divine design. Say it again. Delay is not denial. It is divine design. But here's where it gets uncomfortable, and I'm not going to soften this for you. The next step you need to take? It's not going to happen in private. The breakthrough you're praying for, the guidance you're asking for, it's going to require a public act of your faith. Not a performance. Not a social media post. But a step that other people will see. A decision that will make you vulnerable. An action that will force you to put weight on what you say you believe, in front of people who might not understand, might not agree, might think you're foolish for still holding that cold cup of coffee and believing it's going to get hot again. And that's terrifying. But it's also the point. Because faith that only works in the dark isn't faith, it's a secret. And God doesn't do secrets. He does testimonies. So there I was, finger hovering over the keyboard. 2:47 in the morning, the blue glow from my phone still cutting across the dark like a blade. The coffee cup from 3 years ago, still cold, still sitting on some mental shelf I couldn't clear. The parking lot grief. The silent inbox. The ceiling I'd memorized with my eyes wide open. And I realized something that made my stomach drop. All that talk about surrender, about open hands, about delay not being denial, it was about to cost me something. Because faith that only works in the dark isn't faith. It's a secret. And God doesn't do secrets. He does testimonies. So I typed the words. Not for likes. Not for comments. Not because I felt spiritual or brave or ready. I typed them because my finger was shaking and my heart was pounding, and I knew that if I didn't put weight on what I said I believed, it would stay a theory forever. A nice idea. A cold cup of coffee I kept staring at but never drank. And now, my dear friend, I need to pray for you. Not a polished prayer. Not a preacher's prayer. A 2 in the morning, sitting on the floor, palms open prayer. Because I know you're holding something right now that you're afraid to release. I know there's an unpaid invoice, or a cold coffee, or a 3 a.m. fear that keeps you staring at the ceiling. I know there's a parking lot where you sat in your car and wept because the weight of it all just crashed down and nobody saw and nobody knew. So let me pray over that. Right now. Wherever you are. Father, in the name of Jesus, I lift up my friend who's listening right now. The one whose finger is hovering. The one who's been refreshing an email that never comes. The one who's been smiling on the outside while quietly fighting discouragement on the inside. Lord, you see the invoice. You see the cold coffee. You see the hospital waiting room and the empty passenger seat and the silence that feels like rejection. And I ask you right now, not for a quick fix, not for a shortcut, not for you to wave a magic wand and make it all disappear, but I ask you for wisdom. Real wisdom. The kind that cuts through confusion. The kind that brings clarity in the middle of chaos. Give my friend discernment to know which door to walk through and which door to stop knocking on. Give them the courage to release what you've already told them to let go of. And give them the peace, the supernatural, doesn't make sense, passes all understanding peace, to trust you even when they don't understand you. Break the need to control, Lord. I rebuke that spirit of control that disguises itself as responsibility, as planning, as being prepared. I declare right now that my friend is not held together by their own grip. They are held by your grace. And that grace is sufficient. That grace is enough for the unpaid invoice. Enough for the cold coffee. Enough for the 3 a.m. terror and the parking lot grief and the silent inbox and the closed door that feels like a slammed door. I release wisdom over their mind. I release discernment over their decisions. I release peace over their heart. Not the peace of having all the answers. The peace of knowing the one who does. In Jesus' name. Now here's where it gets real. This is the moment. This is the modern altar call. Not walking down an aisle in a church building, though that's beautiful and holy and good. This is you, right now, in your living room, in your car, on your break at work, in the dark with your phone glowing. This is you putting weight on your faith. I want you to do something prophetic. Something that seals this surrender in the spiritual realm. Type this in the comments. Right now. Before you do anything else. Type it word for word, God is guiding my steps today. Don't overthink it. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until you have the map. That's the whole point. Faith is typing the words before you see the path. Faith is the public declaration that you are not walking blind, you are walking led. Even when your finger shakes. Even when your heart pounds. Even when part of you still wants to grab the wheel back. Type it. God is guiding my steps today. And here's the truth I want you to carry out of this moment. The memorable truth. The thing I hope echoes in your mind at 2:47 tomorrow morning if you find yourself staring at the ceiling again. Are you ready for this? Write it down. Put it on a sticky note. Tattoo it on your heart. You have never been held by your own strength. Not once. Not for a single second. Every breath you've taken, every morning you've woken up, every storm you've survived, it was always His grace holding you together. Your grip was never strong enough. Your plan was never foolproof enough. Your control was never real control. It was a counterfeit. A beautiful, exhausting counterfeit. But His grace? His grace is the real thing. And it has never failed you. Not once. Not ever. So as you step into the rest of this day, with the unpaid invoice, with the cold coffee, with the memory of the parking lot, with the silent inbox, with the ceiling you've memorized, walk in that truth. Not as a nice idea. As the reality that holds the universe together. The same grace that keeps planets in orbit is the grace keeping your heart beating right now. And as you put down your phone and pick up your keys, know this. You are not stepping into an unknown day hoping God shows up. You are stepping into a path He has already prepared. He has already gone before you. The provision is already on its way. The wisdom is already available. The peace is already yours. You're not chasing Him. You're following Him. Now, step into your day. He has already gone before you.